The twin suns of Terminus 7 beat down mercilessly on the sprawling expanse of twisted metal and discarded machinery that Marcus Webb called home. Sweat traced rivers through the dust on his weathered face as he dragged another sheet of corrugated alloy across the uneven ground. At 34, he'd spent the last 6 years on this godforsaken rock, trading in salvage and keeping to himself. It was exactly how he liked it. The scrapyard stretched for miles in every direction, a graveyard of broken ships and failed dreams. Marcus had carved out a decent living here, selling parts to traders and occasionally building custom components for the desperate souls who passed through the frontier. His workshop sat at the center of his claimed territory, a ramshackle structure that was part warehouse, part living quarters, all functionality. He was securing the alloy sheet to his work sled when he heard it, a soft whimpering sound that didn't belong among the usual creaks and groans of settling metal. Marcus froze, his hand instinctively moving to the plasma cutter on his belt. Scavengers, both human and otherwise, sometimes got territorial about choice salvage spots. The sound came again, more clearly this time. Not aggressive, but frightened. Marcus followed it through a narrow canyon formed by 2 collapsed freighter hulls, his boots crunching on rust flakes and broken glass. What he found made him stop in his tracks. She was huddled behind a cracked coolant tank, trying to make herself as small as possible. Her skin caught the harsh sunlight and seemed to shimmer with an inner luminescence, like moonlight given form. Long limbs were wrapped around her knees, and her clothes, once elegant, now torn and filthy, hung from her frame. But it was her eyes that struck him most, large and opalescent, filled with a terror that was all too human, despite her alien features. "Please," she whispered, her voice carrying a musical quality that seemed at odds with her desperate state. "Please don't hurt me." Marcus raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no threat. "Easy there. I'm not going to hurt you." He studied her more carefully, recognition dawning. Luminari. He'd seen a few of them in the trading posts, always moving in groups, always dressed in flowing silks. This one looked like she'd been through hell. "What are you doing out here?" he asked, keeping his voice gentle. "You're a long way from the settlements." She flinched at the question, shame coloring her features. "The collectors came. I had debts, medical expenses for my brother. They took everything, my home, my possessions, even my identification papers. They said," her voice broke, "they said I should be grateful they left me my clothes." Marcus felt a familiar anger kindle in his chest. He'd seen this before, the way the debt collection agencies operated on the frontier. They were legal, technically, but they operated with a cruelty that made his stomach turn. They specialized in preying on vulnerable populations, especially aliens unfamiliar with human contract law. "How long have you been out here?" he asked. 3 days, she admitted. "I've been drinking condensation from the old pipes. There was some algae growth on one of the tanks that I thought might be edible, but—" She gestured weakly at herself, and Marcus could see she was trembling. 3 days. In this heat, with those delicate features and that shimmering skin that probably offered zero protection from UV radiation. It was a miracle she was still alive. He made a decision he knew he'd probably regret. "Come on," he said, offering his hand. "Let's get you out of this sun." She stared at his hand as if it might be a trap. "Why would you help me?" "Because nobody deserves to die in a scrapyard," Marcus replied simply. "Now come on before you pass out and I have to carry you." She took his hand. Hers was cool despite the heat, and he could feel a faint electric tingle where their skin met and allowed him to help her stand. She was tall, nearly matching his 6-foot frame, but seemed to weigh almost nothing. Marcus led her back through the maze of salvage, acutely aware of how she stumbled occasionally, how her breathing came in short gasps. At his workshop, he guided her to a chair and grabbed a canteen of water. Slow sips, he warned as she reached for it desperately. You'll make yourself sick otherwise. While she drank, Marcus busied himself rummaging through his supplies. He found some preserved ration bars, not appetizing, but nutritious, and a medkit. When he turned back, she was watching him with those strange, beautiful eyes. "I'm Celestin," she said softly. "Marcus." He handed her a ration bar. "Eat this. Then we need to figure out what to do with you." "I have nowhere to go," she said, and the despair in her voice cut deeper than he expected. "No money, no papers, no family who can help. My brother died 2 months ago. That's why I couldn't pay." Marcus found himself studying her face, the elegant bone structure, the way her skin seemed to glow even in the dim light of the workshop. Something about her pulled at him, reminded him of feelings he'd buried when he came to this planet to forget. "You can't stay in here," he said finally. "I need the space for work, but ... He trailed off, an idea forming. It was crazy. It was probably stupid, but he was already committed. "I could build you something. A shelter. Nothing fancy, but it'd keep the sun off you and give you somewhere safe." Celestin stared at him. "Why? You don't know me." "I can't pay you." "Consider it an investment in good karma," Marcus said, though he wasn't entirely sure himself why he was offering. Maybe it was the desperate hope he saw flickering in her eyes. Maybe it was just that he was tired of being alone. "Besides, I've got plenty of materials lying around. Might as well put them to use." "I don't understand," she whispered, tears beginning to slip down her luminous cheeks. "Humans are supposed to be. Everyone says you're harsh, pragmatic, that you don't help unless there's profit." Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with the emotion in the air. "Yeah, well, maybe I'm a bad example. Do you want the shelter or not?" "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, please. Thank you." "I'll work. I'll help however I can." "We'll figure that out later," Marcus interrupted. "First, let's get some food in you and let you rest. Then we'll start building." As Celestin ate ravenously, Marcus began mentally cataloging the materials he'd need. He had plenty of structural alloy panels, some insulation foam from a crashed colony ship, and if he was lucky, he might have some intact environmental seals that would help regulate temperature. It would take time, but he could build something solid. What he didn't expect, as he watched the strange, luminous woman slowly regain some color in her features, was the warmth spreading through his own chest. It had been so long since he'd felt needed, since he'd had a purpose beyond simple survival and profit. Marcus Webb had come to Terminus 7 to escape his past, to hide from memories that haunted him. He'd never imagined that a desperate alien woman hiding in his scrapyard would make him feel something he thought he'd lost forever. ... He cleared his throat. "Finish eating, then get some sleep. We start building tomorrow at dawn, before it gets too hot." Celestin looked up at him, and her smile, small but genuine, lit up the dim workshop like a sunrise. "Thank you, Marcus. I won't forget this kindness." "Yeah, well," he muttered, turning away to hide his own unexpected smile. "Let's just focus on keeping you alive first. Everything else can come later." As she curled up on the spare cot he offered, Marcus stepped outside to watch the sun setting over the scrapyard. Tomorrow he'd start building. Not just a shelter, though he didn't know it yet, but something far more important. Tomorrow he'd start building a home. Dawn arrived with a symphony of expanding metal as the scrapyard heated under the first sun's rays. Marcus had been awake for hours, sorting through materials and sketching rough plans on a battered datapad. He glanced back at his workshop, where Celestin still slept, her luminous form casting gentle patterns of light across the walls, even in rest. He'd made real coffee, not the synthetic sludge most frontier folk drank, and was nursing his second cup when she emerged. Her hair, which he now saw was a silvery white that seemed to move with its own ethereal breeze, was tangled and wild. She looked vulnerable and beautiful in equal measure. "Morning," he said, offering her a cup. "Hope you like it strong." Celestin accepted the coffee with both hands, inhaling the aroma with something close to reverence. "I haven't had real coffee in months. The collectors took my last supply when they—" She trailed off, but Marcus understood. "Well, drink up. We've got work to do." He gestured to the materials he'd assembled. "I'm thinking we build about 50 meters from here, near that cluster of old transport containers. There's natural wind protection, and the ground is relatively level." She followed him to the site, moving more steadily now that she'd had food and rest. Marcus had already cleared the area of smaller debris, creating a rectangular space about 4 meters by 5. It wasn't large, but it would be enough. "I've never built anything before," Celestin admitted, watching as Marcus began laying out the foundation supports. "On Lumina, our homes are grown from living crystal. You sing to them, and they shape themselves to your needs." Marcus paused, fascinated despite himself. "That sounds incredible. And impossible. Different worlds, different possibilities." She knelt beside him. "But I'm a quick learner. Show me what to do." He did, and he was impressed by how attentively she listened. Marcus explained how to identify structural pieces versus decorative salvage, how to test metal for integrity, how to measure and mark for cuts. Celestin absorbed everything, her delicate hands proving more capable than they appeared. They worked through the morning, Marcus cutting and welding, while Celestin fetched materials and held pieces in place. The sun climbed higher, and he noticed her beginning to wince, her luminous skin taking on a faintly reddish tinge. "You're burning," he observed, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Get in the shade." "I can handle this part." "I want to help," she protested, but he could see the pain in her eyes. Marcus stood and walked to his workshop, returning with a large sheet of reflective fabric. "Here, wrap this around yourself. It'll help." When she hesitated, he added more gently, "I appreciate the help, Celestin, but not if it means you hurt yourself. Take a break. You can help again when the sun's lower." She accepted the fabric gratefully, wrapping it around her shoulders like a shimmering cloak. But instead of retreating to full shade, she sat nearby on an overturned crate, watching him work. "Why did you come here?" she asked after a while. "To Terminus 7, I mean. This isn't exactly a paradise world." Marcus focused on aligning a wall panel, using the question as an excuse not to meet her eyes. "Same reason most people come to the frontier. Running from something. What were you running from?" He was silent for so long she probably thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, "I had a wife. Back on Nova Station. She was a shuttle pilot, one of the best." He paused, the old wound aching. "There was an accident. Faulty maintenance on one of the corporate shuttles. She reported it, but they pressured her to fly anyway. Said the route was too profitable to cancel." His hands tightened on his tools. "She died along with 12 passengers when the fuel line ruptured." "Oh, Marcus," Celestin breathed. "I tried to fight it, to hold someone accountable. But the corporation had lawyers, and I had grief and anger. They buried me in legal proceedings until I had nothing left. So I came here, where things are simple. You fix what's broken, you build what's needed, and you don't trust systems that value profit over lives." Celestin was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "My brother, Torin, he was a musician. Beautiful voice, could make even stone weep with his songs. But he had the wasting sickness. It's genetic among my people. Affects about 1 in 1,000. The treatment was expensive, required rare minerals only found off-world." She pulled the reflective fabric tighter. "I spent everything I had, borrowed more. I would have given anything to save him. But in the end, It wasn't enough. He died, and I was left with debt I could never repay. Marcus stopped working and looked at her fully. In her eyes, he saw a mirror of his own pain, the helplessness of watching someone you love slip away, the rage at systems that could have prevented it, but chose not to. Without thinking, he crossed the distance between them and sat beside her on the crate. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "I'm sorry too," she replied. "For your wife." She sounds like she was brave. She was. He found himself almost smiling. Stubborn too. Wouldn't back down from anything, even when she should have. Like building a shelter for a stranger? Celestin asked, a hint of warmth in her voice. "Maybe I'm more like her than I thought," Marcus admitted. Their shoulders were touching now, and he was acutely aware of the cool temperature of her skin, the way she seemed to radiate a soft light in the shadow of the reflective fabric. "Come on, let's get back to work. This shelter won't build itself." As the day progressed, they fell into an easy rhythm. Marcus would measure and cut. Celestin would prepare the next piece, and together they'd position and secure each component. The structure began to take shape, walls rising from the foundation, a frame for the roof emerging, like bones of some mechanical creature. During a break for lunch, Celestin surprised him by humming while she ate. The sound was unlike anything Marcus had heard before, harmonics that seemed to resonate in his chest, making the air itself vibrate with beauty. "That's incredible," he said when she finished. "Is that a luminary song?" She looked almost embarrassed. "It's called a heartweave. We sing them to people we care about, to let them know they're not alone. I hope you don't mind. It's instinctive for my people when we feel." She searched for the word. "When we feel gratitude and connection." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, something he hadn't felt since before his wife died. "I don't mind at all. It's beautiful. You're beautiful." The words hung between them, and Marcus immediately wanted to take them back, to retreat into his safe distance. But Celestin's eyes had widened, her skin brightening with what he was beginning to recognize as luminary emotion. "You see me as beautiful?" she whispered. "Even covered in dust and wearing rags, even after everything?" "Especially after everything," Marcus heard himself say. "You've lost everything, been through hell, and you're still here. Still trying. Still humming songs of hope. That's not just beautiful, Celestin. That's extraordinary." She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away if he wanted. When he didn't, her cool fingers traced the line of his jaw, feeling the rough stubble there. "Your people would say you're just being kind, that you're helping someone in need. But I think there's more to it than that." Marcus caught her hand, holding it against his cheek. "Maybe there is. I haven't let myself feel anything real in 6 years. Didn't think I could anymore. Then you showed up in my scrapyard, and suddenly I'm building again. Creating instead of just surviving." "You did that." "We did that," she corrected, moving closer. "You're teaching me that having nothing doesn't mean being nothing. That you can build something meaningful from scraps and determination." Their faces were inches apart now. Marcus could see flecks of color in her opalescent eyes, swirling patterns that seemed to shift with her emotions. He could feel the cool warmth, if such a contradiction were possible, radiating from her skin. "Celestin," he said softly, "I should tell you that I'm broken in ways I'm not sure can be fixed. I came here to be alone, to not hurt anyone else or be hurt again." "And I should tell you," she replied, her breath mingling with his, "that my people bond deeply. When we love completely. I don't know if that's what this is yet, but I feel something when I'm near you. Something that makes the universe seem less cold." "That sounds terrifying," Marcus admitted. "It does, doesn't it?" She smiled, and it transformed her face into something radiant. "Are you brave enough to try anyway?" Instead of answering with words, Marcus closed the distance between them. The kiss was tentative at first, both of them testing unfamiliar territory. Her lips were cool and tasted faintly of starlight and coffee. When she responded, deepening the kiss, Marcus felt something he'd thought long dead spark back to life in his chest. They pulled apart slowly, both breathing harder. Celestine's skin was glowing brighter now, pulsing gently with light. That was ... double quotes, she began. Yeah, Marcus agreed, not quite able to form a complete sentence either. They sat there for a moment longer, foreheads touching, simply existing in each other's presence. Then Marcus forced himself to stand, offering her his hand. Come on, let's finish your home before the second sun sets. We can figure out the rest of this, whatever this is, as we go. Celestine took his hand and rose gracefully. Deal. But Marcus, thank you for seeing me. For this, she gestured at the half-built shelter. But he knew she meant more than just the structure. Thank you for letting me, he replied. They worked through the afternoon with renewed purpose, their hands occasionally brushing, their eyes meeting with new understanding. As the twin suns began their descent, the basic structure was complete: walls, roof, a door that actually sealed properly. It wasn't beautiful by any conventional standard, but it was solid. It was safe. It was theirs. Marcus installed the last power cell as darkness fell, and light bloomed inside the shelter for the first time. Celestine stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the warm glow, and Marcus thought he'd never seen anything more perfect. Welcome home, he said. She turned to him, tears creating trails of light down her luminous cheeks. Our home, she corrected, because I think a part of you lives here now too. Marcus couldn't argue with that. Somewhere between the first panel and the last weld, between shared stories and a single kiss, he'd invested more than just materials into this structure. He'd invested hope, possibility, and the terrifying, exhilarating chance at feeling alive again. As they stood together watching the shelter's lights push back the darkness of the scrapyard night, Marcus realized that sometimes the most important things you build aren't made of metal and circuitry. Sometimes they're made of trust and vulnerability, and the courage to believe that broken people can create something whole together. The shelter was complete. But their story, Marcus knew, was just beginning.